Okay, guys, so our previous lab dealt with convection currents. Really, it's a density driven current that is focused on temperature differences. So, in that previous lab, we noticed that, hey, when we have warm water and cold water, they're going to kind of gravitate towards each other, where warm water is going to travel at the top while your cold water is going to travel towards the bottom. But remember that with deep ocean currents, temperature is not the only factor. We have to also consider that our ocean is nothing but salt water. So we're going to take a look at today what happens with saltwater interactions with fresh water. So very similar setup. I have some water in my tub right here. I'm going to let this settle. So for this part, guys, I have some beakers. And these are pretty much the same beakers that I used yesterday. So in each beaker, I have 100 milliliters of water. In one of these beakers, I'm going to measure out 5 grams of salt. So I'm going to measure it out over here. And we're going to add some salt into one of these beakers. All right. And I'm trying to get it close to 5 as possible. All right, this is close enough. There's roughly about 5.4 grams of salt in here. So I'm just going to add it into here. I have 2 stirring rods, guys. Well, popsicle sticks, they work. So let's get this back here as best as we can. Okay. So I'm going to add some food coloring into it. So, and I think for the salt water, I'm actually going to add blue. I'm just going to pretty much use the same things that I did yesterday. And I'm going to add a couple of drops. Just enough that we'll be able to see the difference. All right. Okay, so I'm going to put that over here. So this is my salt water. And in here, I'm just going to leave it as red. I'm just going to put some red drops in it, and we are going to stir that up really good. I'm using another stick because I don't want it to be contaminated. All right, so for this one, I am going to now pour them in at the same time. And what I would like you to do is watch closely how the waters are interacting. And then shortly, I want you to start sketching what you are seeing. All right. All right, guys. So there we go. So want you to kind of see your observations. Should definitely notice some sort of current going on. You could definitely see a very clear layer going on. All right. I'm going to give you guys a top view as well again. So you can definitely see a top view of seeing how everything looks. I'm going to give you guys a side view from my point of view, which you should be able to see right. Let me tilt this back a little, tilt this up a little bit. There we go. You should see a definitely see a layer. All right. So record your observations. All right. All right. Observations should have been made, guys. So while you are pausing this section to kind of see what happened, I'm going to get ready for the next setup. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to pour some more water in. So our second trial that we are going to do is now going to look at temperature versus salinity. So we clearly see hot water is going to rise. So a warm current is going to flow above a cold current. We saw that when we did density currents with temperature. We also know that, hey, salt water is more dense than fresh water. So we clearly saw that in this part. But the underlying question is, which one is going to have a bigger factor in influencing a deep ocean current or a density-driven current? So for this one, guys, once again, I have my pan of water. So for this one, guys, I'm going to add, once again, 100 milliliters of water. Okay, so here's my fresh water. But instead of doing 100 milliliters of fresh water with 5 grams of salt, I'm actually going to put 100 milliliters of hot water in here. Okay. Here is my hot water, and I'm going to get 5 grams of salt. Definitely a little too much. Okay, actually this one was almost spot on, 5.04 grams. All right, so salt goes in 1 cup. I'm going to, once again, like I did before, I'm going to dye this blue. So I put some blue food coloring in there. Stir it up real good. And in our fresh water, we're going to make it red. Stir that up real good. All right. So, just like we did before, I'm going to pour my 2 cups of fresh water and salt water. I'm going to pour it in at the same time. But now keep in mind, we didn't only change salinity. We have fresh versus salt. We also changed the temperature. We have hot salt water, and then we have pretty much room temperature fresh water. So let's see what happens as I slowly pour them in. Ooh, it's a little hot. So that you definitely want to be careful in, if you are to do this, you definitely want to be careful. All right, guys. So once again, let's make our observations. So we definitely have a little bit different than what happened the first time we did this. But there's one clear thing that is staying the same. And that is which layer is on the top and which layer is on the bottom. So let's take a top view, guys. There is, like that from this angle, guys, sorry. There's your top view. And then I'm also going to give you a side view from my perspective that you can definitely see that very clear layer. All right. You make your observations on that, guys. There's your layer. So sketch out what you're seeing. And I'm actually going to do one more trial. All right, guys, while you make those observations, I'm going to start cleaning up, and I'm going to put one more trial down. Once again, cleaning up. Okay, I'm going to add some more water in here, guys. All right. So we got some observations about temperature versus salinity, but we used just room temperature water and we used hot salt water. But salinity amounts, our water is not just one temperature. We have areas that are warmer and areas that are colder that have almost the same amount of salt. So why don't we see what happens when we have the same amount of water with the same amount of salt, but one is hot and one is cold. So once again, guys, I have cold water in here. I'm going to put hot water in here. All right, once again, I'm going to get 5 grams of salt. Okay, this is close enough. Here's 5 grams of salt going into my cold ice water. Oh, I got it right on the nose. All right, guys. So we are going to put in our hot water, we're going to put 5 grams of salt in there too. All right. We're keeping with the theme of blue being hot. Put some dye in there. Stir that up real good. Put some red in our cold. I know this is like the opposite of what we did in yesterday's lab. All right. Both have 100 milliliters of water. One is cold and one is hot. And both have 5 grams of salt in them. So once again, like we've done for the first 3, we're going to slowly pour them in. And let's see what happens. All right. All right. So we definitely got something going on here, guys. So I'm going to give you a top view. So we definitely have some swirling motion going on. Once again, we have you can definitely see it on here. We do have some layering going on. Now remember, we had our red was the cold water with 5 grams of salt, and our blue was the hot water with 5 grams of salt. So you can definitely see, once again, some layering going on, especially on this side. Definitely, I'm going to give you guys a side view on this one because this is pretty. Layering is always a pretty cool thing. But you guys can definitely see some layering going on. And it doesn't look like the red is completely at the surface. Kind of looks like it's hanging out a little bit. All right. So you guys can continue making your observations. And then you will be able to answer the analysis questions based off of the 3 observations that you have been able to make. All right. So actually some of the salt did not get in the red, but no big deal. All right, guys. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed. This lab is definitely going to be a little bit longer, but it's no big deal. The analysis questions will be due by the next class, where you also do have a quiz. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the lab, and I will see everybody next time.